Hello, 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 everyone. My name is Matthew Terry, founder and CEO of Suade, and welcome to another episode of our podcast, People in Sales, Not Salespeople, a podcast where we analyze the person behind the salesperson. And the person that we are analyzing today is Daniel Skaggs. Is that correct? Skaggs?
Yep, you
Yes.
got it.
All right. How are you doing today, Daniel?
I'm good. Happy Wednesday to you.
Happy Wednesday, man. We are trying to keep it nice and warm here in Portland, Oregon, but the weather ceases to allow that to happen. Uh, but we're working hard on it. Where are you calling in from?
I'm in good old St. Louis, Missouri. So um, one of those places. It's summer or winter. There's kind of the two seasons we get here.
Just very binary. You got summer vibes or you got winter vibes.
Yeah, yeah. No spring or fall anymore.
That's crazy. Appreciate you hopping on. I'm really excited for a conversation. Daniel and I met. I reached out on LinkedIn for a conversation about you and your business, and we got to know each other. And I was like, "Hey, this guy'd be great to have on a podcast." I love when conversations like lead to really like non-business conversations and just like, "Hey, let's just vibe together" type conversations. You know?
Yeah, no, it's same. It's people's philosophy, what motivates them, like what's underneath the hood's always fun to discuss, and I think one of the best ways to learn a different perspective and potentially how that can change your skill set or even personal life.
Oh yeah, I completely agree. One of the reasons I started this podcast was for me, just so I can selfishly glean all the insights from my guests and really pick their brains on different things. So excited to have you on. Excited to do that with you, man. Let's dissect here. The first thing I like to do with my guests is have them take us all the way back to the beginning of their journey in sales. Like, what was the moment where you decided to go into sales? Like, what made you say, "Hey, I think I'm gonna try this sales thing out and see what happens"?
Yeah, I think like a lot of people, sales was an accident how it happened.
Mhm.
For me, and a lot of it blends with personal life and obviously professional like aspirations. For me, had like a set idea what I wanted to do in life, where I wanted to be, and then had would call it epiphany, something that's kind of disrupted some of my personal beliefs, and then that kind of made me a lost soul. So it's kind of like, supposed to go to college, supposed to do this, but some of that drive or dreams were kind of lost. So being a
Mm.
lost soul, just kind of getting by, was working multiple jobs. This is post financial crisis. A few years after that, but the job market wasn't great.
Mm.
So was really struggling and underwater. And a recruiter reached out to me for an insurance job. And I was like, okay, I had a full-time job in retail. I was doing nights at a restaurant serving and really couldn't get by. And they're talking about the base pay alone is there. I was like, what? So went into
That's
that, the B2C world first, selling insurance, and did that for a couple years, had a really good um, trainer, especially on like presenting and fact finding, like things like that. But truthfully, I sucked at it. I did some of it was confident, some of it else, but it's like the first like touch of like, okay, sales isn't the stereotype either, like boiler rooms, buy this or not people, or kind of the sleazy thing.
ABC.
There's
Yeah.
a there's a methodology. You're gonna ask these questions. You're gonna discover. You're gonna plant seeds. Like there's some of that like had a flavor of that from that trainer. So yeah, did that for a couple years, and then after that went into the B2B world, in the home services industry, but it's doing a very unique thing. It was a B2B to C. So you partner with businesses that were in the real estate space. They would actually refer their customers that were consumers, and then you would actually make the money on selling services as consumers, and then you similar channel sales where there'd be, exchange of money to the business partner. So did that for I guess a little over 5 years, close to 6 years. And that time in there was had the real experience, like, wow, gain confidence, have industry knowledge, have impacts for your partners. So, you're doing sales, but you're not ripping people off. You're not feeling shitty about yourself. So some of that fulfillment, and then also that's when I really started to make money in sales, so it's also like the financial piece. And like with that comes personal confidence. You start to, believe in yourself more and obviously changes your life. You start to have dreams again about what life can be. Um,
Mhm.
so after that stage, decided to make the jump into the tech sales. Quickly found that I really like startup worlds. You know,
Okay.
companies go if it's being a early or founding team rep, building them up. Did some in a fintech company and then was part of an agency for a period, which I'm still, associated with. Um, Now the last year and a half, I've been more or less founding account executive for a legal tech company called Justice Bid, where we sell into in-house law departments for corporate 500, global 1,000 companies to help them with their more or less taking legal procurement, bringing it into corporate law departments is in a nutshell what we do.
Gotcha.
Uh,
Okay. I'll pretend that I understand that legal for procurement into corporate da 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 da. Um, in sales, it's fun because when you do jump from job to job, you get to learn the intricacies of different industries and different products and all that stuff. So that's one of the reasons I like sales. And you don't have to be like the person actually building or the expert in that. So that's good. Now you mentioned at your first job you were doing B2C, which is business to customer or consumer, and you had good training, but you sucked at it. I want to dive in there because when it comes to upskilling and training, that's always a point of interest for our audience and for people who are in sales themselves. So I want to ask you, like, yeah, you started in your sales journey, you weren't good at it, but like, what sort of kept you in the game, and what did you do to try and upskill yourself?
yeah. So the big thing was, um, probably put it into like two different buckets. One was prospecting. Um, Living and dying by the phone. Everyone hates to prospect. You might have two two like hour-long call sessions a week. That's it, was kind of mandatory. And,
Mhm.
people that were veterans had a network, they knew how to get referrals. So they would show up there, they'd make a couple dials, confirm their appointments the next day, but they're dicking around the rest of the time. So, monkey see, monkey do, you see what they're doing, not
Yeah.
realizing like, hey, I'm coming in scratch. I don't have a network. I don't have a book of business, and I'm younger. So there's a little bit of um there's some trust that sometimes people don't have, especially if you don't aren't confident or have product knowledge. Someone's not going to buy from a kid. Obviously, if you have those two things, they 100% will. Um, but going to the point, didn't know how to prospect, wasn't comfortable prospecting, especially with picking up the phone. And
Mhm.
as you know, the many conversations with folks. I was listening to the pod you had with Martin, which was great. But yeah, not knowing how to pick up the phone, not knowing how to talk to people, not knowing how to handle rejection,
Mhm.
made guess what? There's not a lot of pipeline, not a lot of opportunities, and especially when you're newer in sales, having a little extra pipeline's good because that way, when you do go in there and you do mess up, you make technical mistakes or whatever else, you have a backup plan a little bit,
Yeah.
which is a little different than enterprise selling, especially in the B2C space. I think having more is probably better till you kind of refine or specialize. So that was one aspect. Um,
And just to sort of dig in there, at first for our audience, for people who don't know what prospecting is the part of the sales cycle where you're cold calling and you're doing your first outreach to a customer. So you're picking up the phone, you're making a dial, you're catching them out the blue, and you're trying to give them a pitch. Um, that that part is a part that I love. I love the cold calling aspect. I love sales calls and cold calls, but most people dread it and uh, uh, really struggle with the objection handling and the rejection that you get because you do get a lot of no's. That's just part of it. You get a lot of no's. You gotta be tough and have perseverance within that. So when it came to learning how to overcome objections and really deal with that rejection, did you do any more training, any books? Did you do like call reviews? And when I say books, did you read any books or do any other training to help upskill yourself there? Or did you just kind of do trial by fire and sort of figure it out as you went?
it really a mixed bag. And then some of it truthfully happened when I moved into the B to B to C space because tech is very siloed when it comes to sales. We're a lot better about training, a lot better about having a strategy and methodology. Um, so in that industry, it was don't believe in emails. Had a in-house built CRM, which was basically Excel with pretty lights, not sophisticated. So
Mhm.
your strategy was call somebody every other week,
Yeah,
leave them a voicemail. Second time that month you call them, you don't, and you're just ping pong. You just call them, call them, call them, call them. Not a lot of. Um, but the flip
strategy.
side is you're doing that from a hard phone, not from a dialer, not from a soft phone. So you're gonna make 100 phone calls in a day. You're calling 6 to 8 hours a day. You're making phone calls, and your goal at that point in time is I want to have conversations, and that is the whole point. Make a lot of dials, have conversations, have 3 to 5 quality conversations in a day, and I'll probably generate business, and then follow up. It's all follow up, follow up, follow up. So in that, you kind of learn repetitions, and then you just by experiment, you kind of figure out what works, what doesn't work, and then you do find external resources, and then you have other people that you do learn from. By any means, I'm not suggesting that's how people go about it. I'd say my learning curve was probably a lot longer than what it should have been because of some of that, but it was the different industries have different approaches and, you only know what you know and you learn a lot from your peers. But that was like initially what didn't have a choice. I had to get good at the phone because my job was
Yeah,
on the phone. It was basically a call center.
right.
And then doing that for 5, 6 years, and you're doing manual dials. Obviously the advantage of that is I'm dialing the number. I'm hearing the phone ring. It's not skipping to a next call because someone's not going to pick up or whatever. It
Right,
goes to
right.
voicemail, and I have to decide, am I going to leave one or am I going to hang up? Um, so it helps you be really present, which I think is important.
Mhm.
And then listen, and then you gotta get creative. If you've talked to someone a couple of times, or even for a year, you've had multiple conversations. You gotta like you can't do the same thing and it's not gonna work with that person. You have to get, like, creative or find different ways, and, like, as the phone's ringing, you're thinking about, "What am I gonna bring up this time, this conversation that I didn't last time, that might open the door or get them to pull the trigger or, wanna have a more serious conversation."
Right. Every prospect has a different personality, has a different viewpoint on how they view cold calls, how they view salespeople and the sales stigma, and how they're going to view your product too. So, and that's another thing with cold calling is the research you do beforehand. Some people don't do any research. Some people do a little bit of research. What is your take on researching before a cold call?
I think it depends. Being someone who's done, direct to consumer, done more SMB, and then, more on the enterprise side, it
Mhm.
really depends. I think one factor is, does your prospect pick up the phone? Or is it historically? I know that can really, it's hard to gauge because each individual is different. But do people pick up the phone? Do they talk on the phone with you? Then you probably can do a little bit less research because you're gonna have more conversation, so it's a little bit less risky. Your
Mhm.
prospects are not people that pick up the phone. You're only going to have a few shots. I'll say like here in the corporate legal department, people do not pick up the phone very often. I do make phone calls every day. And when I do, it's great. Especially I've noticed when you have a deal, call them, don't email. It's very natural as an AE. You want to sit there and just follow up with email or LinkedIn messages or text. Call them. There's stuff they'll tell you on the phone that they're not going to put in writing.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Because they need to cover their butt. And they're not saying anything bad or, inappropriate or s- telling you company secrets, but there's this voice to voice conversation is powerful on the deal side. I know that wasn't your question there. Um,
No, it is
but,
mental health.
but,
It is.
but going back to the research, I think it depends further. I think with more enterprise, more higher up executives, if I'm going to call the chief legal officer of Apple, I got to do my research. You know what I mean? And I've
Right.
tried calling her. Haven't had a conversation with her, but I need to have like I need to know her business. I'm calling you because I saw XYZ and XYZ. Further notice this with the kind of initiatives. this is how it ties into your department, and this is how I help with that. It gives
Mhm.
me authority, which gives me more confidence when I have that conversation versus a very generic, this is who I am, this is why I'm calling, this is how I help, but tie it into like those business priorities they have. Versus if it's something that's more of a volume game, more transactional, smaller deal size, I probably don't have the luxury to sit there and do a bunch of research and only make, 10, 15 calls. It also probably depends how many accounts you have. If you have 1,000 plus accounts, you probably don't have to do a lot of research. For you, it's really find out of those accounts, narrow down to who's more likely in market or using your competitors and target them hardcore. But if you sit there
Yeah.
and you have 50, 100 accounts, do you really want to blow through them because you basically committed sales malpractice and did not research them? So I think it depends, depending on what you sell,
The
how many accounts
database,
you have, the
right,
database. I think there's a lot of factors,
higher up.
for you. And some people, they do really well, like not prepping and just winging it. Some people researching psychs them out, makes them nervous, sit there and be like, "Oh shit, this person makes, 20 million a year and I'm gonna cold call them. I'm intimidated now." You know what I mean? Versus like if
Now
you
it's
don't do that, you may be not intimidated. So I think there's a little bit of self in there too, like what works for you. And
mhm,
frankly, if you're doing it and it's not working, try it the other way. It's ultimately about you getting results. So if it's not working, just mix it up.
right. So, I like that. How big's your database? How many people do you have to call on? If it's thousands of thousands, then you do have the luxury of, um, not necessarily failing a lot, but just having a lot of at bats to have people to resonate with. And then there's also the fact of how many times are people gonna pick up your phone? What's your connection rate? If it's really low and you got a quota to hit, then you really need to make sure you're having a quality conversation, which means you should probably do some research and get a good insight on the person's problems. And then I like what you said about the actual title or the rank of the person that you're calling on. If you're calling on a CEO who doesn't have a lot of time, who doesn't really do PS, then you're gonna want to make sure that you're direct, not very open hearted. So, what problems are you struggling with today, Mr. CEO or Mrs. CEO?
Yeah.
You're not gonna resonate with that.
Oh yeah. What's keeping you up at night? Probably like, well, you cold calling me the next day.
Re
you know?
So stop. Yeah. So, and if
Yeah.
they do pick up, you gotta be ready. You gotta be ready. "These are your problems. This is what I learned. Is this true or not?" "It is? Okay, well, then here's my solution." So, that's good. That's good practice. And you're still cold calling now for the company that you're with? Okay.
Oh yeah.
And
Yeah.
you're
Cold
closing
call.
or you're a
Sorry, what's that?
strategic you're closing too, right? Because 'Cause you're a strategic, account executive.
Yeah. So for us, it's full cycle. So if it's from prospecting to sales cycle to, negotiating and then period of helping hand off for onboarding and customer success as we build out, that program as well.
So you're doing the customer success and, like, account management
I
too?
I'm not necessarily doing that, but I'm a little bit involved just to make sure those handoffs go smoothly. Especially, I think, and that handoff period, those first few months when someone is a customer, probably when they're the happiest or most excited, and that's also your prime time to search who's in their network, who they're connected with LinkedIn, and potentially
Mm.
ask for an intro.
That's good. I never really thought about that because I'm learning that too with Suede. Like when people are on there, they're diving in, they're becoming evangelists of the product, they're sending me all types of accolades or email. Um, I we're still in the beginning phases of sales, so I haven't had a customer on for like 4 or 5 months, but I'm assuming that excitement goes down over time. That's just a natural thing. So you're saying a good sales strategy is when they're in that excitement phase. That's when you ask for a referral and you say,
Yeah,
"Hey, who
that
else do
that
you
yeah, that honeymoon stage, and then if it's
know, honey?"
feasible, research and ask for names. If it's like, who
Well,
else do you know? They're probably gonna be like, I don't know. You know what I mean? Versus, hey, I saw you're connected with so and so at this company and so at this
mhm,
company, etc. Do you know them by chance? Would you mind? Do you know them? Could you shoot a quick intro email? If you don't know them that well, are you cool if I drop their name and just reach out to them myself? You know,
yeah,
um, just
that's
like
good
that. But
strategy.
yeah, if you, it's yeah. but both of those work, and definitely giving them a name because, if you give them a name, it's a really easy, you don't have to think about it. They don't have to sit there and be like, "Who do I got in my Rolodex that I can refer to you?" That's too much work, and then they're
Yeah,
not thinking that way versus you being like, "Here's so and so at this company."
yeah.
It's,
Or
a little easier for them.
probably perfect. It's like, "Hey, do you know these 2 people?" It's like, "Yeah, okay. Can you introduce me?" "Yeah, awesome. Do you know anybody else?" Right? Who would be interested? And then they get the brains turning. So that's good. And, really backing up, as a AE who's cold calling and closing and doing the customer success, a little handoff. How do you split up your time between or the 3 areas?
For me, it's every day. I'm a believer in time blocking, but I don't like the idea that people they time block their calendar and it's just recurring every week after week after week. That 9 to 10 on Monday, this is what you're doing. Um,
Mhm.
I will look at my calendar for the following day. What meetings do I have, and then what do I need to schedule around it? So for me, I want to knock out my prospecting as early as possible because, to a degree, probably the thing you falling with deals like is exciting. This is my money. There, there's interest. There like it's a little bit easier. You need to be, intelligent and make sure you're not like brain dead when you do that. Obviously, but that's a little bit easier task to do. And I think when you're demoing or doing disco calls, stuff like that, you have like energy, you have nerves, you have excitement. So in those, like, you make sure you're prepped for them. I think like that's going to help you bring your best. But if you're exhausted and you're trying to cold call somebody, you're gonna shit the bed probably, unless you can have a hype song or can like get in the zone. So for me,
Yeah.
like I'm gonna knock out what's what could maybe fall through the cracks if I do it, last minute. So in
Mhm.
my main way I go up with that is I send videos on LinkedIn. Um, so for me, it's a task in my outreach. Who do I have to send the videos to? I have a selfie stick stand. I get behind that brick wall and I'll shoot out some videos. Guess what? I'm warmed up. I'm talking. I'm expressive. Doing it on a video. Next, after that, I go to my task. What are my voicemail tasks for the day? I'm gonna knock out those.
Okay.
Then after that, guess what? I'm doing my cold calling. Obviously, the voicemails they might pick up. I don't do voicemail drops. I'm gonna call them like a genuine person, so they do pick up. Or if I do leave a voicemail, whatever. But then after that, I'm gonna do actually my cold calling after that. And then once I'm done with my cold calling, I'll probably do some of my manual follow-ups or more urgent deals that should be phone calls versus email or whatever else. So that's kind of like my strategy on that. So I start with video, do voicemails, then I do the cold outbound. That way I'm nice and warmed up and awoke, woken up. And I try to do that ideally in the morning. Obviously depends what meetings I have on the calendar, but for me, it's you know, morning,
Yeah.
early afternoon. On occasion, if someone I've talked to and I'm not getting hold of them and there's definitely something going on, I will set like a manual reminder and call them,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
then
but
even, but that's
you're in
not
hours.
not the norm. Um,
Yeah.
and from
One of
there, like, meetings will be on the calendar naturally, just like when it worked for the customer when we scheduled it. And then same with idea, like with deal follow up, making sure that, I'm giving myself, a chunk of time throughout the day to do my deal management and follow-ups and whatnot. And then, um, I I'm a fan of nighttime work. Not
Okay.
suggesting it to anyone, but, you can sit in front of the TV and do your admin work or, your lower priority deals. You can sit there and schedule out emails or brainstorm on it, and at least create a note for yourself that when the next day you have a task that you are gonna call them or whatever, you've kinda done the brain side of it already. And doing that, it's just an hour once or twice a week. Um, it really can help, especially in startup. Again, I'm not advocating it. I know you could always
I'm
argue that,
going.
it's bad time management, but I'm a nighttime person. I enjoy it. And sometimes I'll
Yeah.
sleep better, like, because I'm not going to sit there and be like, you know, shit, tomorrow I got a bunch of meetings. I have emails coming in my inbox I need to respond to. Two of those meetings I still need to do some prep for. So I'm going to lose, half an hour there. and then
Mm.
you're in bed, anxious, whatever else, worrying about it versus like, hell, if I log in an hour tonight, knock out some of that, I'm gonna sleep better. And then I go to tomorrow and be like, okay, I don't have to worry about that. I have free time to do my prospecting now and whatever else versus some admin stuff or, account research before a call.
Interesting. All right, I'm gonna ask LinkedIn. I'm gonna click that up and be like, "What do y'all think? Hot take, nighttime work? Question mark."
Yeah.
Yeah, all
Yeah.
spectrum.
It won't be like it works for me. I don't think it works for other people. And obviously burnout, you don't want to burn yourself out, but I'll
True.
burn out by not sleeping. There's a good book. I didn't remember the name of it. Talked about like the growth factor and the idea behind it is, growth plus stress, you're gonna always burn out. But if you have the idea that, hey, if you're implementing things that make you grow, but you're getting adequate rest, you know,
And
you're gonna improve. That will stress, not really growth. I got the phrases mixed up there. But think about like as an athlete, you work out really hard and then you eat like shit and you sleep like shit, your body's gonna fall apart. You're gonna get injured, you're gonna get sick. But you sit there and you push your body and then you make sure you're eating healthy, you're sleeping properly, your your endurance will increase, your muscle mass will increase. And I know I sound like a meathead saying that, but I think to a degree it's
I
similar to the mind,
balance.
how the mind is,
Yeah, there's a
um,
big balance between, not really between, but like there has to be balance for there to be growth.
yeah.
There's like that pendulum. I forget what the analogy is, but there's a phase where you're working really hard, and if you're working really hard, then that means you got to rest really hard too.
Oh
You're
yeah.
working a little means you need to rest a little. So it's like, where's
Oh yeah.
your pendulum swinging? Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I do not log on weekends. Yeah, I try to keep that,
Okay.
rule and, make sure I'm investing in, my health, my relationships. I think, younger days, as an athlete and was all in on that kind of stuff and other parts of the life really, um, failed because of that. So for me, it's like there is balance, like, as you said, with that pendulum there, making sure it's keeping it a little bit balanced and what works for you too. But for me, it's
Right.
part of the fun of startup life is there's a little bit more chaos. Not saying it's a bad thing, but to me, like that's exciting. That's a thrilling.
Yeah.
For me is as I'm not the founder, I'm not the inventor, I'm not the creator, but I'm the operator, and I get to empower someone else to fulfill their dream. To me, that's
Hmm.
badass. Like that's fulfilling. That's driving, and obviously making sure you're working for the right person and the right product like matters. If they're a psycho or terrible to you, or they got a, C quality product, probably not gonna work for you, but,
Yeah. But if you're passionate about what they're building and their vision, then you can hop on that train and be a part of their success story, and that's always fun. So
yeah,
definitely with you there. And yeah, startup life is chaotic, but it's something that you kind of got to be weird and like. There's lots of ups and downs in the life of a startup, a lot more downs than ups at the beginning. But you just got to roll with the punches and kind of enjoy the madness. So, and that could be the same thing with sales and cold calling and even AE work, like doing uh, the closing activities is some of the most turbulent times you could have. In I think all different positions a company could hold. Like sales closing is extremely turbulent. You could have companies that buy right away and you're like, okay, well, that closed. I don't know why, but all right, let's go. And then you have companies that the life cycle of the sale is all over the place. And it can sometimes be hard to predict, especially if you don't have a strategy, you don't have a system, you don't have management, all that stuff. But I do like what you said about time management and all that. I read a book called Fanatical Prospecting by Jeb
yep.
Blount. You know that one?
Oh, yeah, I
Yeah.
have a audiobook version. I'm like, you know what? I gotta have a hard book one so people think I read a lot.
Holding up on a LinkedIn post.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, Great book. He talks about golden hours. And he says every sales rep needs to have golden hours, 1 or 2 hours where they're dedicated to cold calling. Everybody needs to know when their golden hours are. You can't schedule meetings in your golden hours. All you got to do is cold call. You got to be strict with that. So I like that concept. In practice, it's tough, especially at the beginning when you're like, ooh, the prospect said that this is the only time they had, or this meeting is really important. But I think in concept, it's a solid mindset to have to make sure you're consistent. So that's good.
Oh, for
Awesome.
sure.
Next question is around some of the negative aspects of sales. What is your least favorite part of sales? Why?
Um, you do like have to wear your heart on your sleeve. I think it's a greater society thing, but your worth as a person is like what you do. If you're a good parent or a good student, or if you're successful, if you're a good athlete, like and then you're good at your recent whatever it was. And I think in sales, like that social idea is really implanted. So if you're kicking ass, had a great quarter, booked meetings, top of the world. Get your kicks teeth in, failed, lost deals on a pip, you're at the bottom. And I think that emotional roller coaster is obviously a downside. I think with experience and self-awareness, you kind of learn like what's the best way for yourself to navigate that. But there's obviously, a dark side of sales, and you see fantastic people become toxic or get jaded, over time
Mhm.
because of a really bad thing within the company, within an industry, or they're just burnt out and they don't quite haven't realized it. It's could be a depressing kind of industry at times, depending on what your self-awareness is.
Yeah, that's good. I haven't really conceptualized that for myself, but I feel like I'm going through that right now as someone who's really diving into the sales part of the business journey in these last couple months. It's like, hey, sometimes when you close, one day you can be sky high, and then the next day you can be like, "Dude, I am the worst XYZ, ever." I think knowing where your worth comes from and and preparing for the emotional roller coaster before you get into the sales journey is important too. And it's like you got to take people at the word, but also you don't take people at the word either. It's like this prospect may be super excited and want this thing, but I'm not going to get excited like they just like they closed until the paper's signed and the money's in the bank account, you know?
Yeah. Oh yeah. And sometimes your most heartbreaking losses, come back around in sales. You know, there's people that sign with someone else, few years come around, guess what? It's happened. In some cases, those are some of the most, rewarding scenarios, that when you do lose it. But if you stay patient, stay persistent, if you can get the feedback, review your deal yourself, take responsibility a little bit. Yeah, it's easy to
Hmm.
blame you brought on for the boss or a founder, and they screwed up it, or someone on their end, or someone
Hmm.
quit and they were a key influence or whatever. Um, yeah, name of the game
Gotcha.
though.
Yeah, name of the game. Name of the game. All right. Well, our next section is all around training and onboarding new reps. I know you're not in the management realm right now, but as you take a step back and just look at sales as a concept and just pretend you're not forget that. And how would you train a new salesperson when it comes to cold calling and closing as well? Like, what do you think is the best way to go about training?
Um, I guess it probably depends on the position, but I think regardless, I think marketing people should at least once a year pick up the phone and call with the SDRs. I think that should be a part of
Yeah.
everyone's onboarding to a degree.
Okay.
Um,
You
I,
market.
I think like step one is like, what is the business priority? Like, what is our goals of business as a startup? Like, what is our end goal here? Like, what can you share? And like, why is your role important? How does what you do get the organization there? And then how's that aligned to like what you personally want? If we're trying to have a rocket ship or go public, we're trying to get acquired. If there's so we only can get so big, but like, what does your future want? And then this is like your step one in here, and your step one for a customer's life is obviously picking up the phone. So if it's planning, what this is what our vision is, what is your vision? Some what is kind of like our methodology, our strategy. This is like our go-to-market strategy. This is what it works. Give you like an overview of that. And then I think from there, some company training, and then let's jump into skill set training. Like, where do you actually stand? Let's have them listen to calls. Let's have them practice with their peers. I think um, role playing is a really underutilized thing in sales. Think
Mhm.
about every professional athlete in the world. They're still throwing, still practicing their pitch, still swinging the bat, or whatever. Like they're still running and training in an intense level, and people sit there and be like, "Yep, I've made 100,000 phone calls in my whole sales career. I know what I'm talking about." And you're kind of like, man, if LeBron James was a sales rep, he probably would have 500,000 phone calls of practice a year. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's kind of like it's kind of backwards. That we think experience means we're good, and it doesn't. It just means you have reps under your belt, and probably shitty reps. So for me, like I, if I was king of the day or in that position, I would hardcore training, hardcore role playing, hardcore practicing. And then from there, get into on the field, real action. And then from there, see where there's holes in your game. Where did you fail? Maybe you tried to handle the objection correctly, but you fumbled it. Okay, let's further practicing on it. Or maybe they phrase it differently or whatever else. I would kind of go on that. And once they start doing that, kind of the next step, it starts we're playing discovery stuff, bringing them on to shadow discovery calls, then have them do discovery with supervision and things like that. But I wouldn't say I could, if I was asked to hire somebody tomorrow, I for one would probably use AI to help me build the playbook on that, and then training, and then making
Uh-huh.
multiple iterations there. So not the best answer, but I guess the big takeaway for me is like
Oh, you swayed.
role play, role play, role play.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. And I also like what you said at the beginning there. You said you need to help them understand what your company's vision is, and then you should also understand what their vision is. And it's really from a management standpoint, um, caring about the new person's goals and vision for their life is a way for you to really strike a chord with them and make sure that they're as motivated as possible because you know what's going to motivate them because you know their vision and their goal for their life. So that's something that a lot of managers I feel like miss out on when it comes to training and culture, right?
Yeah.
Culture
Well, I
building.
think like your interview process, it'd be me selling myself for a job, and the company selling the job me. And then once you sign a contract, it is like, this is what you were requiring of you, and you're agreeing this is what you're going to bring to the table, and then vice versa. This is what you're going to get out of us. So to me, like there's the paper contract, but I think like there should still be a soft contract between direct bosses and employers that, hey, I need to trust you. If you're my boss, I need to trust you. I need you to trust me. If there's not trust between us, this is not going to work. For me,
Hmm.
I'm gonna do what I say I'm gonna do. If I'm gonna sit there and tell you I'm gonna do this, it will get done. Same should probably happen for you. Don't sell me a bunch of bullshit that you're gonna do the XYZ and you're not. You know what I mean? If that's not happening, this isn't gonna work for me or for you. And that probably will break trust. So for me, like those are two like things that I need from a boss, but I also guarantee I'm gonna have that. They're gonna have that for me. Like it's and I think how you start to have those conversations or build those is, I think, by establishing like this is the company's vision, what is your vision, and like how we can mutually benefit by making that happen.
Yeah, that's definitely good. Awesome. And then he said, even marketers should cold call. Everybody needs to know how it feels to cold call, talk to the customer, get the no's, get the yeses, and move forward. So that's a fun way to think about it too. Yeah, training and onboarding is a way to set the foundation of a sales team and of a new sales rep. So you got to get that right if you're going to build a good sales system, a good sales organization. Role playing and making sure you're aligned on vision are two really good parts of that. So thanks for that. And I like to ask this question to everyone who's on the podcast, man. What does it take to be a good salesperson?
Um, Curiosity, consistency, um, and either a really strong desire to win or a really strong desire to hate to lose. I think really those 3 things is all it takes. Everything
Love
else
it.
can learn.
Yep. Got to have that curiosity and just the will to move forward, whether it's will to win or will not to lose. That's good. I like it, man. Well, I appreciate you hopping on. These insights were really, really helpful. And it's always good to uh, talk to someone who's actually doing the tasks. Because a lot of people on this podcast have been the consultants or the managers or a leader of some point. But you're, I think, the only one on this season who's actually out there executing. So how do you manage your time and what's your journey through sales and talking about how you started in B2C and going to B2B? I think all that stuff is super helpful and gives people a good perspective on sales. So appreciate having you on, Daniel. Thank you so much. How can people find you and look at your content?
I'm on LinkedIn. I don't really post content, but active in DMs or in comments and whatnot. So definitely can find me on LinkedIn. Happy to chat with anyone. Thanks so much for having me. This has been great. I've enjoyed finding your podcast and listening to some of the different perspectives you have as well. So thanks so much.
Yeah, yeah. All right, y'all. Till next time. Over and out.